Hi, David Kessler here. Welcome to part 3, Your Life After Loss. I'm glad you're here. This has been a lot and you have been through so much, so I'm so glad you're continuing. We're now talking about your life after loss. We want to look at your belief system that's forming or has been formed, those conclusions you've made, and we want to help you create a life after loss. So what conclusions are you beginning to see you have made from your loved one's death by suicide? Think about that for a moment. What conclusions have you made? Could you think now life sucks? Everything's pointless? Everyone who loves me leaves me? Everyone abandons me? I drive people to death? Maybe pause this tape and take a moment and write down some of those. What conclusions have you made now that this horrific event has happened? So pause it here, write them down, and we'll come back to them. Okay, what were your conclusions? Begin to notice them and maybe begin to see life doesn't always have to suck. Maybe you don't drive people to death. Maybe mental illness does at times. Maybe bad things happen in the world and they're not your fault. Things can happen to you, but not because of you. Things can impact you without you being the cause. You have choice in your belief system now. There's been a horrible tragedy. You have lost someone so dear. And that person who died would most likely be horrified if they think they also have destroyed your life too. If you can work on feeling your feelings, feeling the grief fully, but then also living a life fully after loss. One of the things that blocks us is survivor's guilt. Survivor's guilt is sometimes that sense we have that I should have been the one that died. And when I ask people, why should you have been the one that died? They may say something like, well, because their life was precious. Because they had more to live for. They had a purpose. They deserve more time. And I will say, aren't those things just as true about you? Your life is precious. If their life is precious, so is yours. If one life is precious, they all are. Don't you have a purpose? Don't you have more to live for? And sometimes people will go, I don't know what my purpose is. Well, maybe more is going to be revealed. Maybe in the intense early grief, or even early on, you are not going to know. By the way, people always ask me, how long do I grieve? And I always say, well, how long are they going to be dead? You're going to grieve for the rest of your life. That doesn't mean always with pain, but you will always miss them. You will think about them. So, but the question is, can more be revealed down the road of what your purpose is now that you're still living? Because you want to live a life that honors them if possible. The other thing that's not unusual that comes up is catastrophizing. People tell me one of the worst things now is they catastrophize about everything. We catastrophize when a catastrophe has happened. So for example, when someone's 10 minutes late, you're just sure they're dead. When someone doesn't show up, you're sure something horrible has happened. You think that way because you've actually been involved in a catastrophe. But you have to work with your mind and tell your mind when someone's late. People run late, there's traffic. It doesn't always mean death. You have to tell yourself, people sometimes are irresponsible. It doesn't always mean death. And reassure yourself that someone else is most likely okay, even though your loved one did die. I also want to point out a big concept to think about as you move forward is grief is love. Grief is love. And grief sometimes is so painful because we have so much love for the person and then we stop ourselves and go, they're dead, I can't love them anymore. Yes, you can. Don't give death the power to stop your love. If you look at grief.com, my site, it says, because love never dies. I don't believe when they died, they stopped loving you. And I know you didn't stop loving them. So when you feel that love for them, just allow it. Just when you feel love, just feel the love for them. It still can flow out of you. And I think they can still feel it. At times you may have what we call grief bursts, where you just break down crying somewhere or you can't control your emotions. Not unusual, especially in early grief. By the way, I consider early grief the first 2 years after a loss. So it's not unusual to have what people call grief bursts. Some people call them grief attacks, but I don't think grief is our enemy. I think grief helps us with our pain. So I don't like to make it an attacker. The other thing I want you to notice is when someone is alive, we have moments with our husband, with our wife, with our child. We just love them. We just feel so much love for them. After they die, when we well up with love, we automatically think it's grief. So I want you to sometimes think when you have a grief burst, is this a grief burst or is this just me loving them? And just know you do not have to fear releasing the pain. Sometimes people are so afraid if I release the pain, I'll lose my connection. No, if you release the pain, as you move in time through the pain and release it, then the love will be there. And that connection in love is stronger than a connection in pain. Another concept that I think might help you is a man named Martin Seligman came up with what's called the 3 Ps. So let me talk to you about the 3 Ps. They are personalization, pervasiveness, and permanence. Okay? So personalization is when you feel, this happened to me, it's because of me, this death by suicide was done to me. Or we think, I'm the only person in this world who's ever had a death by suicide. I'm the only one of my friends. I'm the only one in the family. I'm the only one at work. Just know that's not true. Other people have had a death by suicide. They're just not saying it out loud. But it's all around. So when we feel, and early on we do feel it's personal, but in time we want to realize this wasn't personal. It wasn't done to you. Then the next P is pervasiveness. Pervasiveness is when you think, this loss has ruined everything. This loss has stopped everything. Nothing can move forward now because of this loss in your life. When people tell me that, I'll say, when you go home tonight, check your toenails. Despite this loss, your toenails are still growing. Your fingernails are still growing. Begin to notice how many things in this world are continuing in your life despite this loss. And the last P is permanence. That feeling that everything will now be destroyed forever. I ask people to take 2 words out of their vocabulary. Never and always. You know, we say things all the time like, I'm always going to be in pain now. No, you're in pain today. But you don't know if you're going to be in pain next month. You don't know if you're going to be in pain next year. We end up living in the wreckage of our future. Or I'm always going to be in grief. Today you're in grief, but we don't know what you're going to look like in a year. You'll always miss them. You'll always have the love. That part of the grief will always be there. But we don't know about the pain. I hurt today, but I honestly don't know if I'll hurt forever. Don't go into the wreckage of your future. So those 3 P's can be very helpful. As many of you know, I wrote a couple of books with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who came up with the 5 stages of dying, and her and I adapted those stages for grief. Now, as she and I would have, or I would tell you, those stages are not a map for grief. They're just an identification that a lot of people go through, but not a map. And everyone does them differently. My next book that I'm working on is about the 6th stage of grief, the idea of finding meaning. I think finding meaning after a loss is very important. So when we think about finding meaning, I want you to begin to ask, as you create a life after loss, how you can find meaning. One way we find meaning is we turn some of those things we feel guilty about or we feel bad about into what's called living amends. Let's say when you left and didn't see your loved one for the last, when you saw your loved one for the last time, you didn't say, "I love you." So a living amends could be, from now on, for the rest of your life, whenever you're saying goodbye to someone, you tell them you love them. Maybe you didn't take their phone call when they said, "Please call me." Your living amends could be for the rest of your life. Your living, breathing apology to them is, from now on, whenever someone says they need me to call them back, I will. That's your living apology. Because no, we all have guilt. We all have mistakes we feel like we made when someone has died in general. We want to try to create meaning. Another way to create meaning is by helping to prevent other deaths by suicide. Maybe you just telling your story will help that. When you're ready and if you're ready, it might help someone else. I donate to charities that help. I donate to the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. I donate to the American Association of Suicidology. I make meaning by giving to those organizations that are working on prevention. Is there a charity you could donate to, or an organization, or could you volunteer or do a walk or whatever it may be that makes meaning for your loved one? Because we want their life and their death to be meaningful. And someday in the future, you may find yourself helping someone else who is dealing with a loss after a suicide. And you will now have X-ray vision. You will now know their deep pain. Their pain will be different than yours, but you will know that pain of having a loved one die by suicide. And you will be the one who can be just the listening ear they need. You can be just the person to be with them. That can be an amazing thing you might be able to do someday with this loss. Or you might be able just to say the right thing on social media. As you move forward, I also ask that you make a list of people that you can reach out to. Friends, counselors, mental health professionals, faith leaders, anyone you feel comfortable that you have ready whenever you need to reach out to someone. Because you need and deserve ongoing support. I wish I could tell you a 3-part series is going to make it all better, but you know this tragedy has been too much. But my hope for you is that this series has maybe just helped a little. I think about a trip I took when I was lecturing in Hamburg, Germany. I was lecturing throughout Germany. And I went to Hamburg, and when you're in European cities, you expect old. And I was so shocked when I got to Hamburg and it was all brand new. And I said to them, "Why is your city all new?" Obviously, I skipped the Hamburg or didn't really know about the Hamburg story. They said, "Well, our city is so new because the British and the Americans bombed it." And I'm like, oh, should have known that part of history. But what's interesting, and in this brand new city, in the middle of it, they told me to go visit St. Nikolai's Church. And St. Nikolai's Church, in the heart of the city, just like everything else was bombed, but it's the one place that wasn't rebuilt. And it sits there in the city as a reminder of what happened. I think about our grief that way. You will be forever changed because of your loved one's death. You will forever have that place in you that has been darkened and a bit destroyed because of the harshness of that reality. But it doesn't mean you can't build an amazing city around it. That's what I hope to do with my son's death. I hope to continue to build a life that honors him. And I know when I look at what my son would want, he would not want his death in any way to constrict my life. He would want it to expand. And that's what I'm trying to do despite the pain. And many times as we grow and create our life after loss, we think the grief is going to get smaller. But sometimes that's not how it happens. Sometimes our life has to get bigger. So we have to work on creating a life after a loss that never forgets them, but honors their memory, their love, and all the good they did here in this world. So thank you for doing this series. I'm David Kessler. I wish you much, much healing. Thank you.